Hello there, I'm Jack, and I welcome you to Phantom Chamber, a safe space of dread and distress. Feel free to stick around. The Jungle Book. It could be said that this is the most famous legend in the world. It has been capturing the imagination of children and inspiring artists for almost 3,000 years, as they futilely attempt to create a work worthy of its fascinating content. The banks of the Italian River Tiber. Main characters. Twins named Romulus and Remus. Everything else is long known. To prevent them from becoming heirs to the Roman crown, their grandfather, as perhaps the most famous legend in the world goes, the evil and wicked emperor ordered Romulus and Remus to be executed. Upon learning of this dreadful decision, their poor mother did what she could under the circumstances. She placed her twins in a woven basket and, leaving their fate to chance, set them adrift on the Tiber River. Thanks to the river's current, the basket floated until it was found by a compassionate she-wolf, who, thanks to her maternal instincts, nursed the hungry infants and then carried them to her solitary den, where she raised them. When they grew up, as the legend goes, Romulus and Remus founded the most splendid city of Rome. The second case is much more interesting and has quickly become a headline topic in news, radio, and television programs, tabloid newspapers, and worldwide tabloids. In mid-July 2001, reports from the Indian capital city indicated that the Indian police did not have enough vehicles to respond to all the locations reporting panicked encounters with a superhuman ape man, causing unprecedented panic and hysteria in New Delhi and its suburbs. The latest victim of this monstrous creature was a pregnant woman who died while trying to escape because her neighbors began screaming that the ape man was approaching. Surviving witnesses told the police that it was a creature covered in thick hair, standing between 135 and 185 centimeters tall, with sharp metal claws, a helmet on its head, and various bandages. The Times of India led the journalistic investigation and found that many of the people attacked by the wild man had suffered unusual injuries. An unnamed police officer revealed to the Statesman newspaper that he suspected a group of masked individuals terrorizing unsuspecting people, while Deputy Chief of Police in East Delhi, Manoj Kumar Lal, expressed concern that there might be a tragic hysteria among the population. This mood was most drastically experienced by the wandering, long-haired Yogi Jaimir, who was wandering the streets when he was attacked by an angry mob with incredible force, brutally beaten and handed to the police, believing they had caught a dangerous ape man. Panic is spreading, and the police admit to being completely unsuccessful in the hunt for the mysterious wild man, who allegedly was seen in 50 different locations in the Indian capital in just one night. Police officer Suresh Roy told reporters that 12 attacks had been confirmed in a single night, bringing the total number of attacks on people to over 65. Most of the terrifying attacks by the wild creature occurred in New Delhi, Ghaziabad, and Noida. Denying that the police had received orders to shoot the monster on sight, Suresh Roy said that doctors had concluded from the victim's injuries that the attacker was neither an animal nor a human being. Regardless of whether the Indian police will ever uncover the identity of the aggressive and dangerous ape man as some imaginative psychopath or confirm that he is indeed a wild man, the most famous stories of wild children growing up in the jungle among wild animals are undoubtedly those of Tarzan and Mowgli, the main character in one of the most widely read books in the world, The Jungle Book, by English author and Nobel laureate Rudyard Kipling. Since most of what is known about them, their origins, and their thrilling adventures is well documented. We won't delve too much into their fascinating biographies. I will now tell you some other lesser-known, authentic stories. Another story of feral children is that of two girls, Amala and Kamala, who were raised by a she-wolf. In 1920, as the story goes, Reverend Singh saw a mother wolf and cubs, two of whom had long, matted hair and looked human. After considerable preparations and difficulties, the two human creatures were captured. They turned out to be two girls whose ages were assessed by Singh at about 8 years and 1.5 years. The creatures were taken to an orphanage in Midnapore, India, where the Reverend and his wife were stationed. Singh described them as wolfish in appearance and behavior. They walked on all fours and had calluses on their knees and palms from doing so. They were fond of raw meat and stole it when the occasion offered. They licked all liquids with their tongues and ate their food in a crouched position. Their tongues permanently hung out of their thick red lips, and they panted just like wolves. They never slept after midnight and prowled and howled at night. They could move very fast, just like squirrels, and it was difficult to overtake them. They shunned human society altogether. If approached, they made faces and sometimes bared their teeth. Singh noted that their hearing was very acute and that they could smell meat at a great distance. Furthermore, while they could not see well during the day, they could orient themselves very well at night. In September 1921, both girls became ill, and Amala, the younger, died. Through intimate and devoted contact with Kamala, by softening her skin with oil and massaging her, by feeding and caressing her, Mrs. Singh was able to win her confidence and create the conditions in which Kamala would be willing to learn from her. After 5 years at the orphanage, Kamala demonstrated some intellectual functions. She knew some of the names of the babies housed there. She understood the concept of color. She accepted food only from her plate and knew her glass from among the others. As far as language development is concerned, a visitor, Bishop H. Pakenham Walsh, provides an outsider's description of this aspect of her progress. When I saw Kamala, she could speak quite clearly and distinctly, about 30 words. When told to say what a certain object was, she would name it, but she never used her words in a spontaneous way. I saw her again 2 years later, and she had learned a good many more words. By now, Kamala's and the Singhs' fame had spread. An invitation arrived from the Psychological Society of New York in 1928, offering to take Kamala to the United States, where she could be presented to the public. However, the invitation could not be considered as Kamala grew weak. Her health grew less secure throughout the year, and somewhat unexpectedly, she died on the 14th morning of November, 1929. There are many other stories of feral children in the literature, amongst others the story of a boy who lived in Syria who ate grass and could leap like an antelope, as well as of a girl who lived in the forests in Indonesia for 6 years after she had fallen into a river. She walked like an ape, and her teeth were as sharp as a razor. Equally poignant is the story of Victor, the wild child from Avignon. He, it is said, was a sensation in 1799 that sparked discussions even at the French court. He was found in the deep, unexplored forests of southern France and is undoubtedly the first wild child in history to be studied by European scientists. However, life with Victor was far from easy and without challenges. Soon after his capture, he managed to escape the attention of his guards and disappeared again. For the next 6 months, he hid in the forests of Avignon, successfully evading organized searches and police traps. He was eventually captured near the village of Saint Servan at a time when he was ill. From constant hiding, pursuit and hunger, searching for food, no one ever found out how long Victor had been left to the cruel wilderness. But it could be inferred that he grew up and acquired animal instincts there. He had a long and dangerous scar on his neck, leading French scientists to conclude that he was most likely abandoned in the forest as a young child in a semi-lifeless state. When he was captured, he was estimated to be between 11 and 12 years old and stood about 140 centimeters tall. His lean, rugged, wild face constantly contorted, and he would frequently rub his eyes and gnash his powerful teeth. He couldn't stay in one place, pacing around the room like a captured beast. He couldn't tolerate anyone's company and would bite anyone who came near him with his sharp teeth. Victor never cried, and his face was expressionless, never revealing his inner emotions. He preferred to be naked, couldn't stand any clothing, and refused to sleep on a bed or use bedding. He couldn't speak, nor did he recognize food by sight. He would eat only after thoroughly smelling what was placed in front of him. In the first few months, Victor was cared for by officials of the village administration Saint Servan. But as news of Victor's capture quickly spread throughout France, a group of Parisian scientists sent an official request to the authorities that the wild child from Avignon be transferred to a scientific institution for various tests and detailed studies. This soon happened. As he couldn't speak, poor Victor ended up in the National Institute for the Deaf and Dumb, and the task of caring for him fell to Dr. Jean-Marc Coutard, a compassionate and noble scientist who, they say, cared for Victor as if he were his own son. In the following years, the wild child grew into a robust young man. Dr. Coutard taught him good manners, but he was never completely tamed and reformed. He taught him to dress, take regular baths and maintain personal hygiene, sleep on a bed, use eating utensils, and eat the same food that his French peers ate at the time. This yielded positive results. After a few years, Victor even began to show an interest in social life, but he soon withdrew into solitude because he couldn't get used to the cruel remarks of people he encountered. Thanks to the kind Dr. Coutard, Victor learned to write, but he never learned to speak accurately. He could utter many words, but he never managed to form sentences into meaningful linguistic forms. Why? For a long time, no one knew the true answer to that question. Only in recent times have scientists reached a unanimous opinion. Every child must master speech before their 4th year, believes Burton Wyatt, a renowned American child development expert at Harvard University. If they fail to do so by then, it can confidently be argued that they will never speak fluently. Did this mean that Victor was abandoned before his 4th year and spent at least 7 to 8 years in the wilderness among wild animals? Ancient French chronicles say that Victor died in solitude in the home of retired Dr. Jean-Marc Coutard, and never answered this question. He left behind many other mysteries. Among them, perhaps the most significant one: who were his parents? Under what circumstances was he abandoned? And which wild animals took on the role of caregivers for the wild child from Avignon, known as Victor?